Hi everyone and welcome to another recipe video. And today, as I promised last week, I'm making a matcha version of the ube matcha custard cake. So a matcha magic custard cake. And just like last time, the magic ingredient is eggs. There are no other raising agents, no self-raising flour, no baking powder. You are relying on the eggs which you're going to whip up until nice and airy to raise the cake. And just like last time, you make the one mixture which magically separates into 3 layers in the oven, including the sponge at the top and the custard in the middle. So let's get started. First, we're preheating the oven to 160 degrees C. Very important to preheat it as usual. Now we've got to separate our eggs, and we're going to separate 5 of them. And my usual way of doing this, like last time, is to split the shell into 2 and pass the yolk between each shell half. And that kind of lets the white drip down, and then I just take that egg yolk and place it in the other bowl. And sometimes I also like to get rid of that white stringy bit too, but you don't have to. Now if you get any shell in the bowl, it's really easy just to scoop it out with one of those shell halves like this. And I do the same for when I get little blood spots like here. I really hate blood spots, they're so annoying. I seem to get them very often in brown eggs here. So we're going to continue to do that with all 5 eggs. And be careful not to get any yolk into the egg white because that will stop it from fluffing up properly. Now we're going to take our whites and we're going to whisk it until it forms stiff white peaks like we're making meringue, just like last time. And it is a good idea to do the whites first and the yolks last because then you're not introducing any oil into the egg whites. You know your egg whites are ready when they form peaks just like this when you lift the whisk, and when you give the bowl a shake, they don't go anywhere. So now it's time to add the sugar. We're going to add 30 grams of caster sugar here, and a little pinch of salt just to bring out the flavour, and we're going to give it another good old whisk until it turns nice and glossy. Now pay attention here because I do use a slightly different method to last time to get more of a sponge layer. So instead of adding the milk and flavouring now, I'm going to set that aside, and now I'm going to whisk the egg yolks straight away. So I'm adding 125 grams more caster sugar into the egg yolks, and kind of like the egg whites, I'm going to whip this up until it's really pale and fluffy too. You're not going to get the same stiff peaks with this, but it is going to foam up a lot and almost double in size and become really thick and pale. So it's kind of like making a sabayon custard dessert, only without the wine and without cooking it over a heat. So once that's done, we're going to add 130 grams of melted and cooled unsalted butter. Make sure the butter's not hot, you don't want to cook your eggs prematurely and end up with scrambled eggs here. We're going to whisk, whisk, whisk until that's all nice and thick and incorporated. And because those egg yolks are kind of cool, they're causing the butter to solidify a little bit, which is why it stays thick. Next, I'm adding 110 grams of plain flour, and then I'm going to sift in 1 tablespoonful of matcha, and I used a good old heaped tablespoonful because I like my matcha flavour. And it's a good idea to sift it because that will help prevent any lumps. Next, I'm going to gently fold in everything until it's just about incorporated. You can use a spatula or wooden spoon, but I prefer to use a whisk because it makes it that little bit faster. Just remember to be gentle and tap the batter through the spokes of that whisk, so you're not beating out too much air. And now I'm going to gradually add 500 millilitres of milk. This is the main difference to when I made the ube one. In the ube one I added the milk right at the end after I'd added in the egg whites, but here I'm actually adding it into the egg yolk batter. And you can add it all in one go if you want, but I just find it's easy to do bit by bit because the batter starts off really thick at first, and it's just easier to add it part by part so it loosens it up a bit. And in the end, just like last time, it's going to look like you've completely ruined it. It's going to be really watery looking, but don't worry, this is all part of the grand plan. Once that's all mixed together, you're going to add a couple of tablespoonfuls of your meringue mixture, and this is going to help cut through that really watery batter we've just made. So whisk that in a little bit. Be gentle, but you don't have to be too careful at this point. But when you need to be really careful is this next bit, because we're going to add all the rest of the egg white mixture in. And it's at this point we want to really gently fold it in to keep as much air in as possible, and that is what's going to make the really thick layer of sponge cake at the top. So we've got all of that lovely egg white in. We're going to carefully fold it in, and the key movement is to use sort of cutting and folding movements like I'm doing now, and gently tapping my balloon whisk so that that egg white just softly falls through the spokes. Again, you can use a spatula or a metal spoon to do this, it's all down to your technique preference. All of my old school cookbooks all say to use a metal spoon, but it doesn't really matter, whatever gets the job done. Now I've got an 8-inch tin here which I've lightly oiled and lined with greaseproof baking paper, and I'm going to dump all of that in. And you can see the lovely foamy top and the watery bottom, which is just what we want. And make sure you scrape every last ounce of that in. You don't want to be wasting any of your hard work. And you'll notice I didn't have to scrape the ube one because I made it more custardy, so the foam was finer on top and it all just went into the pan no problem. But here, because the foam's thicker, I did need to give it a bit of a helping hand. Now we're going to bake it for 15 minutes and then leave it to cool completely and chill in the fridge for at least 4 hours or overnight, because the centre is going to be quite soft. And now the fun part, we're going to slice it up and see what it looks like on the inside. Now some people like to trim the ends of the cake before cutting to make sure that every single side is uniform, but I think that's sad because you'll be depriving someone of a corner piece. So I just go right in and slice it into 9, and you can see that lovely sponge. And you can just leave it at that, maybe sprinkle over some icing sugar, but like last time I'm going to decorate it with a bit of whipped double cream. So I'm using 150ml double cream. Again, I'm whipping 300, but I'm actually using half of this because I used the other half for coffee, so all you need is 150ml. Whipping it until it's nice and soft like this. Then I'm going to use that to pipe on top, along with some strawberries and edible flowers because I was feeling bougie again. And for some reason this week I attempted to pipe ruffles. I think ruffles are really pretty on long bakes like eclairs because you just had that one fluid line. I didn't think it looked that great on square cakes because I had to make more than one ruffle and it looked a bit rough. Pun not intended. All in all, I think the swirl in the middle that I did for last week's cake suited this type of cake a lot better. It just suits the shape more. Not that anyone's judging me, but you know, you are your own strictest critic. It does make for a rather satisfying hyperlapse though. Right, now that we are finally done with that, we're going to pop some strawberry slices on top. But not before I plate them up. I've got this slate thingy here, which I thought looked quite nice, and I put an extra one in my little wagashi plate here, because I'm always thinking about the gram. After all, I have been on Instagram for about 7 years, and I've only been a YouTuber, if you can call it that, for a couple at most. But I've really been enjoying the process and learning the ropes and editing, etc. Anyway, cake's ready. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I hope you'll join me next Wednesday for my next one. Spoiler alert, it's mooncake season, so I'm going to be starting to make some yummy mooncakes. Get the full recipe on my blog tashcakes.com and find me on Instagram as tashcakestastes. Subscribe and hit the notification bell if you'd like to see more. Give this video a like if you liked it to help other people find it. Comment down below if you'd like me to make anything in particular, and I'll see you guys later. Be good, be nice, and have a good week.